These are dumb as shit, bro. These fucking two are fucking. Did you watch the whole video?
I'm watching it right.
Oh my god, when he started talking about him, like, look at that.
Look at it.
Look at that white boy. And look at that white boy.
That shit halfway down my leg.
Oh my god, this shit is dumb.
You a racist ass little small dick white boy.
Taco. You can have my seat.
Okay, I had his own seat there.
Oh, shit. Okay.
User was moved out of your channel. User joined your channel.
I can't fucking.
User was moved out of your channel.
Stick it inside.
We will now begin the meeting of the Khalifa meeting. I am now the chairman of the Khalifa NATO Commission, and I hereby call the approval of minutes to be approved be 60 minutes in maximum in total as well. I hereby recognize any NCO and above as a non-voting member of this committee and commission hereby formed as the Khalifa NATO Organization meeting. Anyone that is a CO or above, as dictated by second lieutenant and above, will be recognized as voting members in this commission meeting and recognized by the chairman upon when the mission counting will be stated as well. Is there any questions before you start this conference? Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep. Excuse me.
Without further ado, we will now
We did
begin.
not agree on any 60-minute time.
An alias to message this girl.
That has been noted. Thank you. We will now begin this conference by doing a general report. I will start as the chairman. I want to thank the Khalifa of the Taliban to coming down here and meeting us civilly and not us on the battlefield. On the battlefield, we have lost too much blood has been spilt over these dried hills, these deserts, and the sand has been mourning the death of both Taliban and NATO. The blood cries out from the ground, and we cannot take any longer of this bloodshed, of this toil. The soil cannot take the toil, is what I mean. We must stop this bloodshed if we are to continue as brothers, as human beings, and whichever religion we may put our faith, put our hearts into, we all believe that there's one higher being, unless you're an atheist, which is very sad. Anyway, excuse me, I'm getting off track. That is my general report. If any other NATO officer wishes to say anything, you may now do so. (101st) Second Lieutenant Kickback 2. Do you have anything to say?
Only that these meetings are definitely an important first step to stop this endless bloodshed, and that it should be taken with the utmost seriousness.
I agree, and in the wise words of Neil Armstrong, one small step for man, one big giant leap for mankind. And those words has not rung truer, and in these halls, in this JHQ building, and in this conference they will ring true in the ears of both Taliban and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Am I correct, men? Good.
Aye.
Good.
Does the 65th Warrant Officer, Chief Warrant Officer 2, Taki Tako, have anything to say? All right, then we will allow our Taliban guests, if they have anything to say. And in brief, this is basically the opening statement section of our conference. So anything opening statement-wise, you may state so, Khalifa, and as well as the General of the 3rd Infantry. Go ahead.
Alright, I'll go first. So, as you know, I'm the Khalifa, a religious leader for the whole Taliban force, alright? Now, I witnessed too many brothers, too many innocents die to this war. And I know this stuff won't come quick. I know that there's a lot of built-up anger within our ranks, which is understandable. I fully support this anger. However, it isn't worth the deaths of our civilians. Our men can fight all they want, but when civilians start dying, that's when I have a problem with it. That's why I'm calling this meeting. I came here peacefully because I want to take a little step, baby steps towards peace. That the civilians may not be injured and or killed during this conflict. Now, my general wants to say anything, you're free to say anything.
No comment, as of far.
Alright, concludes our statement.
Does the Infantry 3 General have anything to say? I will take that as a no. We will now begin the general orders section of this conference, which will be the general discussion of the war effort and war planning between our two coalitions. As that said, we will allow our guests to state whichever topics they wish to discuss in relation to war planning, war tactics, or the battlefield in general. Go ahead.
Alright, so it wouldn't be wise for us to reveal too much. Not really wise for both. However, the main reason for this conflict is that we don't appreciate foreigners in our land. It's been like this for thousands and thousands of years. Multiple foreigners have been going through our lands for multiple years. Once again, thousands on thousands of years. It has never ended peacefully. It's never ended, without any bloodshed. That is the main reason for this conflict. Now, my brothers under the Nation of Islam will continue to do jihad or al-jihad against the foreigners as long as they stay in this country. Alright? However, our citizens are dying, our citizens are suffering, and that is one thing I can't stand by. I look for the greater good for all of the brothers.
These guys are fucking dumb, bro.
That includes my soldiers, and that includes the citizens.
Oh my god, when they turn dumb, they're fucking dumb.
After all of this, yes, we want peace. Yes, we want our citizens to thrive, but we want the foreigners out of our land. And we won't stop until it is completed. However, if you guys do stay in our land, we want our rights. We want you guys to show us respect. That is what we want. We just want to be treated with respect. You respect us, we might respect you back. It's how it's gonna work, alright? We can all be brothers. But at the end of the day, you guys are foreigners in our country. General, you want to say anything?
Please get out.
I think you pretty much played all that up.
have to deal with this audible show. Anyway, excuse me. Thank you.
Yeah, that was quite a slap in the face.
He is banned from these kinds of meetings in the future. That was completely uncalled for, completely unacceptable. Like if he wishes to show off his dance skills, he should go to the nearest brothel, which is the finest this country has.
I gotta
Thank
make an
you.
account.
The general, please go ahead.
Why?
Guild Wars.
I've got nothing else to add. It's already been said.
Thank you. As you know, our founding principles of NATO are one of unity,
Why?
brotherhood, and worldwide democracy. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization's motto,
User joined your channel.
which many may not
User
know,
was moved out of your
is
channel.
this. It is this.
User in your channel was user joined your channel.
One moment. Our motto, our founding motto, is Animus in Conciliar Liber, which means in Latin, a mind unfettered in deliberation. And my friends, the time for deliberation has ended. Deliberation is a tactic used by Greeks, by the Romans, by Alexander the Great even, to unfether even the most uncommon and most strategic of plans. In short, deliberation cannot be a concept within our minds. We must move quickly, and we must strike fast within the hearts of our enemies. While I say the word enemy does not apply to you currently in this meeting, it applies to anyone that wants to see discord and hate and death as well. Obi-Wan Kenobi. This server's great. Anyone that wishes to put in death into anyone's lands. And NATO, the treaty organization that oversees this mission as a more of a humanitarian mission to free the civilians of any occupied lands that we occupy, will be a mission that will not be faded and will not be diminished in any way. Now, with that out of the way, within the reasons and the confines of this meeting here today, NATO will stand its ground in terms of fighting terrorism, in terms of giving the civilians the resources and the freedom they need to perspire in their lives. NATO's primary goal and main goal will always be in securing freedom for all, that all should have, as human beings, the right to joy, the right to speech, the right to protect themselves, and the right to live how they should without disturbing others. In short, NATO is more of a libertarian organization than any other. Forcing democracy onto others is what our enemies might define our characteristics around the world. But I must say I cannot disagree. While we do force our tactics, our ideals, and our appeals to freedom, we cannot state that in this, for the confines of this meeting, I will not disguise the truth of our goals and ambitions, which is to free people, whatever they're imprisoned, whatever country, whatever land. As soon as that mission is completed, we will depart these lands, never to hopefully return, and leave the Taliban, leave the followers of Allah, followers of Muhammad, and the Quran, as well as simple goat farmers, simple salesmen, simple car salesmen, simple grocery, simple farmers of any kind. Civilians of any kind will be left alone, as long as their freedom is secured. Now, with that out of the way, let us discuss what's happening on the battlefield. What I see on the battlefield in terms of tactics, in terms of strife, in terms of will, all I see is my wounded brothers in arms, my wounded enemies in arms, struggling, dying, grieving for their brother who was shot in the face by a sniper, one that lost their leg and limb from a minefield that exploded in their lower regions, one who has lost a mother back in Arkansas, grieving for their son who fell by sniper fire while trying to rescue a MRAP driver from enemy fire. These is what I see. The men, women, and children crying back at home or on base, knowing that some of their loved ones will not return and will never see that breath of air deep buried within Arlington Cemetery. The last breath being in a foreign land that they don't know, that they were served, that they were ordered to go. And that is what I have to talk about. The retrieval of bodies, both for the Taliban to receive their Taliban wounded, as well as the fallen, for NATO to receive the bodies of the fallen as well. I believe that is an important topic that we should discuss and we should agree on. Mutual remains return in terms of, you may keep their weapons, you may keep their ammunition, but give us their body, give us their face, give us their loved ones back, so that at least the loved ones back at home, back in America, back in Argentina, back in Turkey, back in Britain, back in Ireland, can see their loved ones, obviously without the breath of life, the breath of Allah, the breath of Jehovah, the breath of Buddha, a breath of whatever thing you worship, whether it be the spaghetti monster to the rock you found on the ground, whichever spirit you believe in, the breath of life that's been taken from them. The least that we can do for all our loved ones back in America or back in Iraq is to give comfort to the ones that lost most, the loved ones of our fallen comrades. The second thing that I wish to address, which would be a mutual benefit, is the avoidance of guerrilla warfare. If we are to conduct warfare or raids or offenses on each of our FOBs, forwarding operating bases, I propose that we raid in squads, not in lone numbers, to ensure that at least if we are to launch an offensive, no man should have to carry the burden of infiltrating a base. Because it is without a doubt that the recent raids of late have involved very small numbers of men that rush into our FOBs, and we have to have the will to shoot them down, knowing that they are unsupported, that they are not reinforced, and that they will die mostly for nothing and without honor. All troops should deserve their fellow comrades in arms to support them and to carry them and to assist them and to heal them and to revive them. As such, even so, if the Taliban does not agree to these tactics, we will be implementing it anyway. We will be only using non-guerrilla warfare tactics as much as possible. If our on-duty personnel does not meet that requirement, we will avoid launching an offensive at that time either. This is to ensure that our men and women, which obviously the Taliban opposes, but the women in NATO that serve along the ranks will have assurance knowing that their brothers or sisters in arms will be supporting them in that way as well. Lastly, the third thing I want to say is a designation of supposed neutral spots within this city. And what I mean by neutral areas in the city is this. We should have hospitals, maybe in the next to the airport. We could have one building or a couple of buildings designated as a neutral zone. If you enter that zone and you have no intention of harming another or engaging in combat, and you're simply there so that your limb does not fall out because of sepsis, or that you were shot in the face and you need surgery right away, or if your arm was blown away by a grenade and you need that put on ice in 20 minutes or you will lose that arm. It is with this that I think that we must designate at least one or a couple of neutral spots on this city to ensure that soldiers, both the North Atlantic Treaty Organization as well as the Taliban, can get the care they need. I think that this facility can be both facilitated by neutral members of the American Red Cross as well as the Red Crescent, which I believe is the Muslim affiliated version of the Red Cross, which is designated by the Geneva Conventions, Article number 5B, as the members who are authorized as non-neutral personnel. And I assume that many of you have already read the Geneva Conventions pertaining to the Red Crescent and the American Red Cross. With this in mind, Scott needs to put them in American Cross models until the time that we can get them, the Red Cross, into the city, as well as Red Crescent members that have the uniform. I think that the least that we can do is establish a part of the city that is a building that you can enter through that building and not be shot at. I don't know which building that could be. I'm open to all ideas. Now, with that out of the way, let us now discuss the 3 topics that I have discussed, the proposals. For summary, I'll go ahead and relist them. Number 1 was this. Bodies. I think number 2 was bodies. Number 3 was Red Cross and the neutral zones. Yeah, okay, there you go. Okay, I got it. Okay, so number 1, the retrieval of bodies. This is more of a passive RP thing because we don't have bodies in the ground anyway. Excuse me. So if any of our wounded men would fall in the hands of battle, or if a man dies in captivity, we should agree to one another that we will return the bodies of the newly deceased, so that their remains may be buried in whichever of their loved ones would want them to be buried or cremated. Number 2, the avoidance of guerrilla warfare to ensure that anyone that is ordered to launch an assault on any of our FOBs can ensure that they will be supported by their men and women and not die and be trickled down by a rain of sniper fire. This is to ensure, obviously, the men or women that is ordered to launch an offensive will be supported and not go it alone. Number 3 will be the designation of the Red Cross or the Red Crescent designated areas, neutral zones within the city, that any soldier can enter and be healed or take refuge until they are able to fight. And obviously, if you exit one of those buildings, you'll be given, or ordered rather, to go to your FOB directly and not be engaged, or maybe a cooldown, or maybe a truce, a 2-minute truce that you cannot be killed. So with these 3 policies in mind, I would like to have either of you gentlemen deliberate if you want to implement these 3 policies.
Alright, so before I discuss about your policies, after I discuss this, will we be able to dish out our policy?
Oh yes, of course. As soon as we discuss these policies, we will allow you to discuss whatever policies you wish for us to both have, of course.
Alright, so regarding the retrieval of the U.S. servicemen that have died, me and my general have both agreed that we will hand over your men. However, on one contrary, we will keep all gear and weapons seized off the bodies.
We agreed to this, as I believe in the old American proverb. I think any American knows this proverb, and that is finders keepers. I agree with that. I think that's a fair compromise. Finders keepers. I agree. Go ahead.
Now, regarding our terrorists, though, we want our terrorist bodies with the ammunition intact. Will you guys agree to that, handing over our men with everything?
If you agree to that, if the NATO organization agrees to the handing over of ammunition, will you agree to return dog tags of our fallen comrades instead of trophies that are kept by the Taliban?
Yes, if you will hand over all the bodies with everything intact from our men, we will hand over the boxes and boxes of dog tags that we have collected.
Fair compromise.
Hey.
Alright, so the second point was the use of militia tactics, I believe, guerrilla warfare.
Yes.
You're gonna like this.
Alright, well, that is one thing that we were gonna have an issue on. For me and my general have both agreed that throughout our history, our country's history, we have always fought this way. We have always fought through the ways of al-Jihad, and we will keep fighting through al-Jihad.
Look at the other guys.
And also, it is harder for us to organize. If you really think about it, we're a bunch of small tribes all under one religious leader who is me. Now, in our Quran, it does say to just kill any enemy, no matter what way you do it.
Oh my god. Dumbest hour.
And you saying that our men are dying without honor is quite a slap in the face to us. Because as long as our men take down one infidel, they've technically died with
I
honor.
can't fucking, bro.
Sound muted.
Thank
So,
you.
no, we will
If I may
not
interject,
stop the attacks.
if you will not use, if you will still continue to use guerrilla warfare tactics, we must at least ask you to avoid or completely disallow your Taliban to use civilians as what we call shields of meat shields, to ensure that when we are engaging any of your forces in battle, if that continues, we will not unnecessarily fire into civilians. I think that if anyone wishes to join the Taliban, they are obligated to do whatever they necessarily feel to serve their country or God or religion. But I cannot, and I will not condone the usage of innocent civilians being used to block enemy fire.
Now regarding that point, we will try our best on that.
Thank you.
I can't give a full 100% answer. Things do happen, and we'll try our best.
I appreciate that. Please continue.
Alright, so the third was the establishment of Red Cross, NATO-backed, the Red Crescent, I believe you said?
The Red Crescent, I believe, is a non-NATO organization that is mostly out of Muslim medics and doctors.
Alright, so regarding those, our fear is that it will benefit the NATO more than us, because you're establishing pretty much points deep into our country, and we don't really like that. However, we would rather have us establish areas within the city, which we already have. In fact, in the city, we have an area where there's 2 ambulances currently not in use due to people not being able to heal. So that is currently not in use at the moment, but we do control a hospital within the city. We just don't want other organizations to be interfering within our country. Even if they are Muslim backed, they don't have the same views as us. And they're not from this country, they're from other Muslim countries. I mean, if you really look at it, us other Muslim countries, we don't really see eye to eye a lot. So we would like to establish our own facilities. Will you guys still be okay with that?
We can agree to a neutral spot where whichever spot you feel that wouldn't be an advantage to us, but more of an advantage to you, but you will still allow the entrance of NATO members that are for the most part unarmed, both in spirit, that they will not engage anyone inside the building, and also that they will relinquish their weapons at the door and won't fire, and will simply use it as a refuge zone.
Alright, well, to that point, I think we'll have to think about that more and ponder on that, because that is a very big thing, and a lot of people in my group, the whole Taliban as a whole, my religious group, are going to have issues. We'll have to go over that separately, all the Taliban.
Sure. I think if you do agree, let us know as soon as possible, and we will assist if you wish. If you want us to assist in the construction of said building. So that's the 3 policies that we would like to propose, and you have obviously deliberated on those policies. We will now move on to whatever the whatever the Taliban, as the head of the Taliban, obviously, would like to discuss in terms of policy. Please go ahead.
May I have a little 5-minute with my real quick?
Go ahead. OOCL wise, I literally pulled those 3 things like as I was saying them, so yeah, I just pulled them out of my ass. Go ahead, I'll take your 5 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and get some water. I'll be right back.
So, how's it going?
Alright, I think we've delivered and I think we're ready. Are you here?
I believe Tim Cook may still be thinking or something. Getting a lot of whatever he's doing.
Pondering.
Yes, he's pondering, deep in thought.
Okay, I am back.
Alright, so me and my general have talked over on our things that we would like to dish out to you. So we'll begin that now. Alright, the first thing, our first policy. We want to be treated with respect. A lot of your NATO soldiers will go up to civilians and or soldiers and yell obscenities, racist terms to them, and we do not appreciate that. That is very disrespectful. You're insulting the people of the country that you have invaded. Now, this is the anger within my ranks, and will lead to nothing but aggression and more attacks. And these attacks, the reason why they've been getting more gruesome and more gruesome is because you're building up the hate within my people, using these foul language and foul terms towards my people, which then angers them. Of course, when someone is angered, they will retaliate and act, such as executions. Sure, you've seen the videos of the executions and torturings that we have done, and that is all because the anger of the people. Also, regarding civilians, we want our civilians to have a free walking space. I do understand that some civilians, well, they do, you know, some shady things, but when our civilians are walking in the open desert, they should not be given, you know, warnings to leave, or they will be shot and killed. For they are walking on the land that they were born on, that they were raised on, and that our people own.
I see.
Okay. The second point is a simple question. Why exactly are you guys here? What is your purpose? Why are you here? Why can't you just go? Leave us to what we were doing before. Everything was fine. Far less bloodshed. Now you're putting my men and your own men in danger. Over what? You can answer that now if you wish.
As I've stated in the general report section of this commission of this conference, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization's primary motto is a mind unfettered in deliberation. And deliberation in this context of this war, of this gruesome war, is this gruesome conflict, is that we are here to free the people from whatever oppression they may have. Oppression from their government, oppression from any local groups, oppression from any kind of oppression, whichever it is. It is the job of NATO, or more rather, the motive of NATO, to pursue any kind of oppression wherever the world may be. As a worldwide nation of 29 member states, including Albania, Belgium, Lithuania, Italy, Norway, Poland, Portugal, the United Kingdom, etc., etc., we are here not only to deliver the promise that rings upon every citizen around the globe, or whichever state they may belong to, or maybe the stateless peoples of this world, which are very many in surprise concretion, is that we are here to deliver the call of freedom. And the freedom is not a constitutional sense in the United States, the article of the Bill of Rights or the Articles of Confederation, but it is freedom in the sense of assembly, speech, life, joy, and the pursuit of happiness. In this case, and in the interest of saving the people's oppression, the people from oppression, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization is here for that purpose. While I may state in regards to the oppression of this nation of which we have occupied, it seems that our mission here is to deliver freedom, and freedom in all costs. Freedom from religion, freedom from oppression, freedom from government. I am repeating myself here, so I'm going to move on. We were called upon this operation, this countrywide occupation, for one purpose, and that is to spread the love for each other as humans, as well as ideals of democracy, ideals of a republic system where people are empowered to voice their opinions like they're doing now in commissions, whatever it's through voting, whatever it's through town halls, whatever it's through any kind of assembly where the people have the power, not just at the top. While countries such as Saudi Arabia have their constitution as a Quran and have their religious leaders as well as the Saud royal family receiving the okay to set what laws they wish according and accepted and in relation to the Quran, is an acceptable system, as NATO as well as the United States is a heavy ally with Saudi Arabia. We cannot condone a system where it is broken. And in this country that I don't even know, because it's all it says is that there's a strike, and I don't know what country we're even in or what year, I'll just assume that this is Iraq. In Iraq, there has been a lineage of leaders, of dictators, as well as men with small nether regions but big egos that drive the people to oppression. And oppression is the word that NATO is quote-unquote triggered by. We will not have oppression anywhere. Oppression in the bedroom, oppression in the brothel, oppression at school, oppression in all forms must be crushed. And that's why the North Atlantic Treaty Organization is here. Thank you.
Okay.
Alright, so
Thank you for that.
we'll probably talk about, yeah, thank you. We'll probably talk about that more after our policy. Now our third policy is basically we're gonna we want to hash out an idea to you guys. We're calling for a 15-minute peacetime. 15-minute peacetime. You guys will control the rice field and the oil, and we'll control the city and silo. Therefore, it's equal on both sides for 15 minutes. Also, I want for my men to have free allowance to walk across the strip of land in front of your base, in between the oil field hill and your base. That strip of land, I want them to walk there without getting pop shotted at or getting warnings. Just free walk across those plains. Right?
A 15-minute wartime suspension, a ceasefire, is something that can wholeheartedly say yes to. After this conference, I will directly install every battalion commander to enact the ceasefire for 15 minutes and allow any position of control points to be oil lake and rice fields. The rest that is not within those boundaries will be under the custody of the Taliban.
About maintenance cabin, we will be controlling that. Also.
Can you repeat that?
We will also be controlling maintenance cabin as well.
So be it. So that was the second point that you guys wished to address. The first one was the blatant disrespect from, well, alleged disrespect from NATO troops. Is there a third policy that you wish to discuss?
Sorry, can you repeat what you just said?
So the first policy that the Taliban, the head of the Taliban wanted to discuss was number one, the alleged blatant disrespect of NATO troops to civilians as well as the Taliban, and you want us to address that, which obviously I will answer yes. We actually have a policy in place that anyone that is not a sergeant or above cannot use broadcasts. If you're using communications, open communications, you cannot be directly racist, nor can you be blatant toxic or in layman's terms disrespectful directly to any specific person or civilian. That is a policy that we have been following, and we will obviously amend it so that it's a lot more stricter. And my question obviously was, do you have any other policy that we should discuss?
Okay.
Yes, we just thought of another one. Regarding civilian vehicles, we've noticed that a lot of civilians will be driving on the road and yet still get fired upon, even though they are still civilians. Same thing with some Tally soldiers. They're following the road laws which you guys have placed on our country. We used to be able to free roam around the whole desert in our vehicles. However, now we're restricted to roads, which a lot of us do follow, but we are still fired upon by your men, even though we're following that. Also, we've been receiving 10-second warnings, or else our whole caravan will get shot up when on these roads. And I don't think that is needed, for the roads are built by us. It is in our country. Also, regarding your men in the MRAPs, they ram civilian cars off the roads multiple times, hitting families. There's children in those cars, pinning them against the trees, and sometimes it results in the deaths of family members. Now, we want your men who are driving those MRAPs to be more careful, and we do not want our people to be restricted when driving on the roads, and we want it to be a nice, safe area and a nice, safe thing for our civilians to, safely roam the roads, drive the roads without being scared of getting shot through their windshield or getting lit up by multiple NATO members.
In regards to this direct complaint, I will do this. I will instruct the Section 4 Central Command Division of my battalion to enforce a new policy that anyone who drives any vehicle, an MRAP or a civilian car that is a member of NATO, will follow their respective countries' traffic laws. In short, we will enforce hit and run laws as well as basic traffic laws. If you have a driver's license, I think the least you can do is follow the traffic laws of your respective country. And obviously everyone in this space is American for some reason. Cough cough. Therefore, all NATO troops will have to follow by the United States traffic laws. However, we will add an exception that if an enemy combatant has entered a vehicle or is driving the vehicle, it has completely been spotted with a weapon or with marked as a terrorist or marked as an enemy combatant, traffic laws will not apply to that car and to that driver as well as anyone inside that car. If they enter the car, then that car is designated as a vehicle in which an enemy combatant has taken control of. Is that an acceptable concession to you?
Yes,
Who the fuck is talking outside? Excuse me. Who keeps talking outside? Whoever's talking outside, I can't see their name because I'll be metagaming. If I see that guy talking, saying asshole to another NATO member, I will have their head. Anyway, please continue.
Yo, what's going on over here?
Alright, so, yes, the whole terrorist in the car thing, that is understandable. And I really do hope that your men and those MRAPs do follow those newly instated things that you're gonna add, because it is really a big issue when you have an MRAP just running over our civilian cars and ramming them off the roads, acting like it's a what's that infidel tradition? Yeah, monster truck rally. They act like it's one of those things. And no, this is still a country, still, you know, our roads, civilian roads, and they shouldn't be rammed off them. Also, we've noticed that our men will walk outside our, you know, our headquarters, our base, just to get splattered across the road and pavement by an MRAP. And also, that shouldn't be a thing. Our men just want to leave the base, walk out, go to the city, maybe go to their brothel, and you know, enjoy their term, enjoy their fun day, without getting without being scared of getting, you know, splattered by a monster truck. And there's a dude yelling outside still. Hey, you guys want to handle this man out there?
We're on it, sir.
Help.
It's being taken care of.
Alright, so I think with that can... Oh yeah, my general wants to say something.
Okay, so you say that you already have policies in place for no racism, toxicity, things like that. So I suggest you start enforcing these policies a bit more. They are clearly not working out from the way that we've been receiving hate over the last few weeks. It is just civilians walking across their farms, etc. They have a whole group of NATOs coming up to them, screaming profanity, and it's just it's not very nice for civilians to have to deal with.
Ah yes, to build up on my general statement, we have witnessed multiple accounts where a innocent civilian farming family at the rice field will be in their house, you guys know, and NATO members will storm in there and call them quote-unquote goat fuckers. And that is honestly very distasteful, very insulting. And those civilians that did that became radicalized because of it. So you guys are really just causing the violence in this.
Let us not point fingers where it is unnecessary, but I recognize the issue of racism and disrespect as well as unnecessary quarrels. I think the issue lies in unnecessary quarrelism. While we are soldiers, I cannot control that every aspect of what a soldier may say because we come from a land of free speech. But I believe with all free speech there is great responsibility, great power, great responsibility. Therefore, we will instruct every battalion commander and officer to vet their trainees more carefully to ensure that they are not foul-mouthed to an extent where it is radicalizing. If our men is radicalizing innocent civilians, then we have completely failed in every sense of the fucking regard of what our motto is and of our opus smenderendi, which is to serve democracy and spread it. So I will take that into consideration. Thank you. Is there another policy that you wish to discuss?
No, I believe the policy 2 and...
Thank you. In the interest of saving time, we will now move on to PTSs. Anyone on this table as a non-voting member or a voting member or not may now request a PTS. Staff Sergeant Tide, please go ahead.
All right. You guys currently talked about valuing your civilians, correct?
Yes, said we talked about valuing citizens, that's what you said?
Yes, that is what you said.
Yes, we did. Yeah, we only support not all civilians, but the civilians that are under the Nation of Islam.
All right. On that note, here at 6 a.m. local time, a troop was leading through city. A suicide bomber killed 3 NATO troops in eastern terrorist city in an attack that also wounded a U.S. service member and 2 Afghan troops. This also resulted in the death of 5 Islam civilians. Are you aware?
If they are true followers of what we are, they have no problem dying for Allah. You see, they know that their death had some sort of positive behind it. For example, wounding some NATO soldiers. Then they will be happy in the afterlife.
Yes, to build up on what my journal has said, in the Quran it discusses that people like this, so as like civilians, people who aren't warriors, that die in combat, they are labeled as martyrs. And being labeled a martyr, quite a respectable thing. It is very honorable in this country to die a martyr, because you are dying for the greater cause.
Very well. That's ahead.
Thank you. We'll take the PTS from Joint HQ Sergeant Head S. Go ahead.
Alright, so I believe you're done with your statement. Now to counter that, you referenced the Geneva Convention. However, the Geneva Convention does not apply in this area at all, neither to you guys or to us. And the reason is, this isn't a war. You guys are doing a policing action against aggression. However, we are local aggression, so therefore it still does not apply. And also, if you noticed, us terrorists, or quote-unquote labeled terrorists, we don't have any uniform that, you know, you can't tell if we're either good or bad. You can't tell a tally from a civilian. So therefore we're not under one uniform, which then also makes the Geneva Convention irrelevant to us. So we don't have to follow the Geneva Convention since it doesn't apply to either side in this area. Also, it is stated that once war crimes are committed by one side, they are completely off the books. And I wouldn't consider us committing war crimes, but we have committed more like, you know, retaliations for certain acts that have been brought against us. But under the Geneva Convention, those are labeled war crimes. So you bring up the Geneva Convention is completely irrelevant to this situation. Now I'll pass it on to my general because he has some statements about.
So, Sergeant Headass, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. You said that you tried to help Talibans as well when you go out healing. I've never had any reports of this ever happening. Can you elaborate? Have you ever actually saved a Taliban's life? Or have you ever had any reports of this happening? Okay. Right, so thing is, any of your so-called healed people, they have never come back to us and told us this. What do? Do you heal them, take them back here, lock them up? Is that what you do? Then execute them on a later date? Because that's the only sort of stuff we've been hearing of. Right. I've got another question for you. When you go out healing your fellow soldiers, do you happen to carry any weapons with you? So if your sole purpose is to go out there and heal people, you should have no need for these such weapons. That is all.
Thank you. We'll now conclude this briefing, very productive briefing and conference with closing statements. I will allow the Taliban leaders to go first.
Alright, so as a closing statement, we just want to say that we hope that these things that we have discussed, policies that we have introduced, are actually instituted with, you know, a strict rule. Like, hopefully you guys actually push these things. What do you call it? The policies that we've given to you guys. Hopefully you guys actually enforce these. They don't just get written up and pushed to the side. Because if that is going to be the thing that happens, it will only end in furthermore aggression, furthermore attacks. So please enforce the policies that we have, and we will enforce the ones that we have agreed upon for your policy.
Thank you.
My general, I'd both like to thank Tim Cook for the meeting.
My pleasure.
Yes. Maybe you could come to our place sometime if we ever need to do something like this again.
Of course, this will be a bridging gap between our two We have both lost blood, we have both spilled blood, and hopefully this will bridge the gap between our languages, our customs, well, I would say not our religion, as Turkey, which practices with the Quran majorly, are the second biggest NATO state, which to that I can't say that we don't have a difference of religion, as actually majority of our troops are Muslim. So in that thing, that's a good thing. Was I interrupting you, General? Do you have a closing statement?
No, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. In the specific reference to the Khalifa's concern that these policies that were discussed today will be shoved aside, I will say this: as soon as this meeting is concluded, which is very soon, we will declare a 15-minute ceasefire with the conditions that were agreed upon today. Anyone that violates the ceasefire, which is 15 minutes, if they violate it in 15 minutes, they can't withhold themselves from firing their weapon. They will be arrested for 45 minutes, and they will be marked with a war crime citation description, which will most likely bar them from pretty much any battalion. When they go on tryouts, they'll see that on their record, and they'll say, "I don't want this fucking guy in my battalion." I hope I hope that's what's going to happen. So that's what's going to happen. I don't want that to happen. I don't want anyone who commits war crimes in any of my battalions, because they should be sent home. At the least, sent home. In my eyes, they should be court-martialed and sent away for a long time. Anyway, /citation. Kickback. Anyway. Secondly, what I talked about in terms of for NATO was obviously number one, guerrilla warfare. Obviously, you'll have the Taliban has to still use guerrilla warfare. Understandable, but obviously you've agreed to the avoidance of using civilians as body shields. Number two would be the release of fallen soldiers. Both, we will send soldiers that are fallen from the Taliban with their ammunition, as long as the Taliban sends back bodies with dog tags and their uniform on. Thirdly, the establishment of a neutral zone that may be established by the Taliban that also can be used as a zone for NATO to take refuge in. We'll have to discuss at our next conference, or maybe a phone call. And then there was the issue of blatant disrespect from NATO. I will be enforcing the specific policy of the disrespect policy of racism and direct disrespect more harshly, and we will see to it that every officer knows this policy to not be directly racist in open communications or face-to-face. Thirdly, was the inclusion of a policy that was that I agreed to, which was the enforcement of traffic laws, basic traffic laws, respected to the country that the person of NATO is in, which is pretty much everyone is in the United States. So the United States, no hit and runs, no unnecessary curving, staying on the road, etc., unless an enemy combatant is driving the said car or has entered the car, which was marked as an enemy combatant either with the weapon or with our records. I think that's the thing. That's all we talked about today. If there's no more other things that the Taliban wishes to say, we will go ahead and conclude this meeting and escort you back.
Right. I'm just gonna say just two more quick things. So with the peacetime thing, we will try to do our best to keep it peaceful, as you do know. Some sects of terrorists will, of course, go on their own thing, but they will be punished. I'll assure you that. Also, if you guys do want your servicemen's bodies and dog tags, we can have a caravan with those items delivered hopefully later today.
Thank you. if that's it, we will go ahead and conclude this conference. The approval of minutes has been 33 minutes and 35 seconds. Thank you all for coming. You may now, well, you can't really salute. You may now say goodbye, and we will hope for another successful conference. Thank you. I'll go ahead, before I escort you back, I'm going to go ahead and announce a ceasefire before you go.
They're coming out.
Unless I believe they have their own car.
Alright, go ahead, you may go.
I just want to let you know I haven't been inactive. I've been on during the night, so don't think I just went inactive for no reason. I'm telling you that now.